Okay, so today I am not really finishing up, I'm continuing to create this language arts curriculum, just basically, following the guidelines and filling the information with different lessons and practices. But I was just sitting here thinking about how different every individual child is. Of course, children, they do have like they do have things that are the same, of course, because they fall into the category of being a child. At the end of the day, though, every child is uniquely different. And that shows up in the school, right? That shows up in their educational level. You can have a group of children that are in the same grade level, but are not on the same academic level, right? You can have, a group of kids, they are all the same age, possibly. Some children tend to be younger or a little bit older, but they all look different, right? Or they enjoy different activities, or they have different behavioral patterns. And so as I was just navigating through this, I really want this to be like, this is the benefit, one of the benefits of homeschooling is that you really get to cater individually to the needs of the child. And so, one thing I noticed whenever my child was going to places like preschool and things like that, it was a lot for her. Like, she thrived the most whenever she was individually playing. Anytime she was, forced to do things that she didn't want to do, it could have been something simple, like just something that was possibly out of her comfort zone, she would have such a strong reaction to it. And things weren't gradually introduced to her in some instances, but I could tell that some of the teachers, they really wanted her to be able to be more inclusive and do all these things, but that just wasn't her behavioral patterns. As in, some of the kids in that same exact grade, they were more social, they were more outgoing, and they could have been a little bit more challenging as well. And so I just think people need to just, understand this is why I love homeschooling, because she gets to be in an environment where she gets to be herself. Of course, I do set guidelines, there is something that she has to follow. Like, I have an agenda for her. And so I tell her that you have to do these assignments by the end of the day. Okay. And you have to do it in between this time frame. Okay. And so she goes and she independently goes through each one. If it's a lesson in which I have to explain or do some, teaching, then we'll have that, we'll go through that together for, however long is needed. But at the end of the day, it's more, that works for her, but there's still a window, there's still things that she is required to do, but it works for her. And then after she gets done, she plays independently. If she wants to go outside, she'll tell me. There are times where I ask, because, she's a child, I'm like, do you want to go outside today? And she'll say no, and she'll just finish doing, creating things. Like last night, she spent a big portion of last night creating little boxes, and just she has little pieces of paper everywhere, which I'll have her clean up. But, she took it upon herself to create something that she wanted, and there was nothing there was no boundaries. The only boundary I have is to make sure that you don't hurt yourself and that you clean up your mess. That's the window, or that's that's what the guideline to it. But other than that, I allow her to be creative in whatever she's doing. So I find it really challenging. I know that's one of the main challenges that I've had when it came to homeschooling is other people's opinions on how things are being ran. I literally cater to her needs, and I ask her all the time. I'm like, do you think you want to go to school? And she tells me that she doesn't want to go to school, and so I don't try to manipulate her mind or gear her anyway, because honestly, let's be very logical. This is a challenge. Like, having to make up an entire curriculum like this is not easy. Having to make sure that I'm following specific guidelines is not, it's not simple, and I'm doing that, and just how everything's happening right now, this isn't simple. But if this is what is best working for her, and it actually, it's something that I can do, it's not, even though it's not simple, it's not a strain on me. I understand what I'm doing, for the most part, and I make sure I follow the guidelines and everything. So like, if it was like very super challenging to where I could not handle it, then I'd be like, I'm sorry, I can't do it, simple as that. I have no problem saying that. But because I can handle it, for the most part, as of right now, I've been handling it pretty well, because this has always been a dream of mine, being able to teach early childhood education. Now, as times get older, we'll see how it flows. Maybe I'll find more resources, maybe I'll get more support. I don't know. But as of right now, I have all the resources that I need. All I need to do is actually just do it. Okay, little pause in the video. But anyways, so this is what works for us. And I think people just need to just really learn how to honor diversity, individualism, we're not all the same. Some things we don't understand, and so therefore I'm not going to put my hand in it. If I don't get it, it's not mine to be a part of, or it's not mine to understand or for me to work with, and that's fine. That's fine. I just go back to what works for me, period. And like I said, the biggest problem that I've had when homeschooling, this is a challenge, but I think it becomes even more challenging when you don't have as much support, when people think, oh, she should be doing it this way, or she should be doing it this way. When in all actuality, I am moving at the flow of what works best for my child. And that's as simple as that, because that is the purpose of homeschooling, that it is geared to her individual strengths. So like, one of her individual strengths, she enjoys doing art. She enjoys doing that. So a lot of there, I make sure that she has all the materials and everything to do art. And she'll do art even off of school time, but I'll use that. Like, she'll sit here and she'll create her own books even after doing school, but I still count that as school, because that's one of her individual strengths. So yes, whenever she gets creative, I count it as school, because that's one of her strengths. One of her, she's not as social, okay? And that's just how it is. And that stems a lot from me. I'm not as social either. And people have never got that about me. They're just like, why is she, why does she keep to herself? Why is she that? Because that is who I am. It's really as simple as that. I've literally always been that way. And I remember the hardest part about being, I don't want to call it antisocial, because it wasn't like I was antisocial. I was just focusing on the things that worked for me, honestly. That's all it really was. And the most challenging part that I've had was people feeling like I should have been something different, when in all actuality, I was being myself. And so like, whenever we're out, like, just say we're going out and we're doing stuff, like we're driving in the car, and me and her, we're just chilling. We might have conversation here and there, but for the most part, we're quiet, because that's just who we are. That's just who we are. We stick to ourselves and everything. I've had so many drivers be like, is she okay back there? I'm like, yeah, we're, and I've even been in stores. People come up to us and be like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know a child was in here. I'm like, yeah, because we vibe together. Now, don't test that vibe, because just like we vibe together in our own space, if we're put in situations that we don't enjoy, we snap. Just because we're quiet and stuff doesn't mean that we don't act out, which is why whenever she was in school, or when she was in preschool, I would come home, or I come home, I would go to the preschool, and she would have tear marks and everything running down her face. I could tell that was such a uncomfortable. Like, it just wasn't her environment. She didn't like being in the environment, and that's just something that you can't change, like you just, so I'm like, well, the only way I can make that work for her so that she can thrive and not feel like she has to survive being in school and being around people that she doesn't really vibe with is to be able to create our own school, and do things that are geared to us. And that's even how I do my life. Like, if I don't, I have standards, I have standards. If I don't like being in a certain type of environment, then I don't want to be in a certain type of environment. And I think everybody has that privilege. Everyone has that right to not be around situations that they don't want to be in. Like, I feel like that's just if you don't want to be there, you shouldn't have to be there. If you don't want to be, like, just say there's a group of people and, someone's like, hey, you can't be with your friends or whatever, so we're going to put you in an uncomfortable environment with people that don't necessarily like you or whatever. And yeah, you'll get the lessons. Don't get me wrong. Life is you learn a lot of things, but the main thing you're going to learn is how you don't want to be around those people. Like, and how you deserve to, live a life in which is best for you, because this is your life. You get one, this is your life. You're allowed to live it in a unique way. You that is allowed. So, I really want people to understand that, because like I said, I've gotten a lot of pushback on how people think we should be doing, but like I said, it doesn't matter what other people think, maybe being more social works for you, and don't get me wrong, she still gets time to engage with other children, like everywhere we go, like if we go to the doctor's appointment and there's other children there, she acts the same way she's acted when she was in preschool. I don't force connections on her. Some people she vibes with, some people gravitate towards her. Even when we were in our old neighborhood, the kids love like coming out of nowhere and just being in our atmosphere or whatever. And so, even though we would all be out, like just say I brought out a whole bunch of paint and we'd all be out there painting rocks, or I'll bring out bubbles and we'd all be blowing bubbles, she always found a way. Like, she would play with them, and she's different. She would play with them, but sometimes she would observe them. So sometimes she would just stand there and watch how the children interacted, right? I wasn't forcing her, like, go play with the kids, go talk. No, this is who she is. She's an observer. So she would watch the children play, or she would go and play by herself. So there would be a whole bunch of children playing, right? And she'd be just in her own world playing by herself, because that's how she's always been, And so, like, I really would love for people to respect, like, just that, not just like, if even as adults, if you take a whole different group of people and you put them all together, not everyone is identical. Even identical twins aren't fully identical. So what makes you think everyone should be learning in the same way, in the same environments, doing the same things? It doesn't work. And that's why some children, they can succeed because it naturally works for them. And some children can't succeed because it just did not work for them. And they needed probably a different environment for them to thrive in, or a different group of people to be around. It's as simple as that. And I really, would just really appreciate if we could learn to just appreciate that about being humans. Everyone is different, and that's okay. So, but that's all. I'm going to get back to work. I just wanted to say that because I just feel like it's like common sense. It's common knowledge, and I think we just forget that we're individuals. But yeah, that's it. I'm going to get back to work now.